Honestly, it's such a pleasure to have you on. Sorry, I was teeing you up there.
Yeah,
Ian,
let's go
Ian
again.
Morris, he's a great dude, isn't he?
Yeah, fantastic. And you're right. Sort of obviously as a writer, behind the scenes, just quietly achieving and making things brilliant, obviously, and they don't get the plaudits that they deserve. And so Ian deserves more for sure. In fact, I was just about to email him today on a new project that I've got coming up.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Hang on, I take it we're not allowed to know anything about this project that's coming up.
No, yeah, not yet. Look, it's very early stages. So but there's been some interest, which is always a good sign. And yeah, just a comedy series that I've put together, and I'm hoping is going to eventuate.
Well, look, whatever it is, we wish you all the luck in the world. Now, the new tour, how lucky are we? Please talk us through it, what to expect. I know a lot of people have got their tickets already, but for those who have not,
Yeah,
what can they expect, please, Rhys?
I suppose there will be, and I'm hoping as well, a new generation, perhaps even two. I don't know how long it's been of people that haven't seen me perform live. It's been over a decade since my last actual tour. I did do a 2020, I think it was last year, or actually the year before. I did a 25 years best of performance, and I sort of dipped my toes in a few places in the UK with that. And yeah, the theatres certainly were full. So that sort of proved to me that there is definitely still an audience for the old Darbmeister. So so then I thought, right, I'm going to write a new show. Let's go back and let's do it properly. Let's do a massive UK tour like I did in the old days. And so for those of you that haven't seen what I do, basically it's physical comedy, obscure observations. It is stand up, but there's also elements of one man play basically on stage where I play different characters. So I create stories and then I just become the people in the stories as well as some of the objects. That's as much as I can sum it up. Yeah.
You, but also, it's fair to say that no two shows are the same. I mean, I've seen your improvisational skills are unbelievable. I mean, I'm not trying to oversell the tour here. I mean, maybe I am. But if you were to see you in, say, one venue on one night, and then there are differences, aren't there? That you've got that skill.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely likely to be this time round too, because I've given myself more space to improvise. It's taken me
Wow.
25 years to realize that, one of my major skills is that I can just improvise. And so I used to script my comedy shows quite severely and not leaving room for the fun I really should be having up on stage. So I've done that this time round. So yeah, I think there'll be more loosey goosey moments for the audience.
And you're one of those guys. I was listening to a podcast. They were talking about Simon Pegg when he goes to these what they call, what they called, where all the super fans get together.
Oh,
Not
the
called,
Comic Cons.
Comic Con. He's one of these guys. He's got the Star Trek guys, the Edgar Wright guy. You fall into that category. You've got the Concords
Mm,
guys. You've got the guys that know you from stand up. The Flag guys.
yeah.
What a rarefied position you're in, where you've probably got four or five different types of audience coming to see you for different reasons. I mean, that's not many can say that, Reese.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's good. I've definitely got a hold on the geekdom,
Yeah.
which something I've always wanted to do. I've always been a big dork, and so I think I feel proud about that. I've done a few things over the years, and yeah, I've got little audience fans from different things I've done. And my opening act, Steve, he's a D&D guy, and he's got at least he's like he does the who's the games master or whatever you call it. I mean, I'm not a D&D chap myself, although he's really pushing me into it these days. Come on, let's do it. I thought, what, just you and I? Yeah, we're on the road. Okay. So he does material about Dungeons and Dragons. So even if there's folks out there that are into that, he does a good 15 minutes of that sort of stuff, which before I even go on.
Amazing, but
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. I mean, it's fair to say. Oh, actually, hang on. Sorry, let me do that again. The Edinburgh Festival. You're back this year, am I right? That is. Like, it's fair
Mm.
to say that you have a very special relationship with that festival. That must mean a lot to you. It must, when you're back there, it must all come flooding back because, you know, you caught one of your big breaks, I think, came through the festival, didn't it, many years ago?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's where everything came together for me. I'll never forget, turning up there the first time. I think it was 2001, and just being blown away by the city alone. And then the idea that all of these people from the arts world came together. It felt like just the greatest place on earth. It felt like home. And you get to, you know, see so many fantastic acts. And then over time, I just went every year from that moment. And I think I've done like at least seven or perhaps eight. There was a couple of gaps, but I've certainly done a lot of Edinburghs. And of course, that's where the Flight of the Conchords and I got together, made our radio show pilot with the BBC. And then, the rest is history after that. So, it's a really important place for me and a great place to return to.
What was the thing that there was a specific act out you were doing where the two Concords boys saw you and went, I think we found our guy. Can you remember what it was? I remember one of them describing it,
Oh,
and they said it
really?
was so unusual. Yeah,
Well, I mean, I knew them from back in New Zealand, and we did the comedy festival there. And, I think Jermaine came and saw me do. I was in a double act at that point, called Recently Granted with my mate
yeah.
Grant. And, so we did sort of bizarre sketches and songs. And I don't think he would have seen me in that and gone, "Oh, that should be our manager." But I think it was we've always had a similar sense of humor. We grew up watching the same, mostly British comedy stuff, and we got obsessed with wanting to, be in this world. And I think, from my memory, it was in the UK when, in Edinburgh, when he approached me and said, we're doing a pilot. Do you want to come along and play our manager? And literally that day we did it. We didn't have any discussions prior to that. We just set ourselves up in one of the flats, and Will Saunders was the chap who had his mini disc player to record us. And we just went straight into, Jermaine said we'll start things off with a band meeting. And so I did. And I introduced myself because it was mockumentary style straight away. And I said, right, let's and I just went straight into the roll call. It just came out of me. I don't know why. I just said, right, let's do the roll call, Brett. And then we just went straight into it. And I don't know where that came from. I think it might have come from, my old soccer days when I was about 9 years old, and our football manager would do the roll call when we were all kids, to make sure we're all there to play the game. And you get a lot of these little things from life, and you end up just utilizing them in weird moments.
The thing is, I mean, the listener may not be able to say I'm like wiping wiping tears of laughter at the memory of the roll call. We're talking about, I mean, as a self-confessed comedy nerd, to hear that and how that came about just blows my mind. And then that is the sort of bit on that show where fans, including myself, we could not believe our luck. And so for that to be the genesis is just
Yeah.
such a simple
I'll
idea,
never
but
forget it. Right at
it's
the kitchenette in a small flat in Edinburgh. I can vividly see myself sitting there looking at those two and doing the roll call, and us just trying to not crack up. That was the main thing. We were big. We were big Spinal Tap fans as well. We love the Christopher Guest stuff. So it was just, we wanted to sort of emulate that, but do it in a Kiwi way. And I think it's just the weirdness of where we come from, and that if you've ever heard the actual radio series, it's all about them trying to make it in London, and it was all improvised. I don't know. I just very, very proud to be part of something that then blossomed into a massive TV show, and then launched my Hollywood career. So I think, to see, if I can find that flat in Edinburgh, I should go up there and just get a photo with it and just give it the old high five.
Mate, where we do the comedy night, there's a blue Charlie Chaplin plaque within
Oh, yeah.
50 yards away, and I walk past it every time on the way to the gig. Mate, that flat should have its own blue plaque.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I should look into that. I might.
Get it, Rhys Darby roll call here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe after
I
I'm
mean
dead.
the no, God, sorry. I mean the Hollywood career. I mean, let's pick Yes Man at random. I mean, when you're making a movie with Jim Carrey, look, I know you've achieved a great deal, but nevertheless, surely, I mean, from what I know of you, you're a modest guy, but when you're making a big Hollywood film with Jim Carrey, what on earth is that like? Do you have that moment of like, gee, we're not in Kansas anymore, you know?
Very much so. It was surreal because that was my first movie, and I remember saying to my agent, my stand-up agent actually, Brett, back in London, and he said, where do you want to go with this career? And I said, well, I'd love to end up in the movies. I'm a big Jim Carrey fan. I'd love to work with, and then cut five years ahead, there I am in this movie with him, and so it really is a bizarre kind of universe coming together moment. I think the most surreal moment when I was doing it, I was just thankfully um, just really on, and I wasn't nervous. And I think a lot of it was because Jim was really lovely with me, and I kind of I had the confidence, I had self-confidence. This is all stuff that I had learnt through, dare I say it, just my old army training back when I was 17, 18, just to believe in yourself and the way you hold yourself and just, don't be timid. And I think I had the backing of my own self-belief that I was funny, and this is after season one of the Concords. So I'd already done one HBO series of this thing with my mates that we knew there was some massive moments in that was hopefully going to become something. We weren't sure, but we knew at least the roll calls were going to be legendary. Not to say their music, of course, which is the main part. So I must have I had that, and I had the fact that Peyton Reed, the director, called me when I was living in Tooting, and he said, "I want you in this Hollywood movie with Jim." And so we just packed our bags, and we got a first class flight. We got a limousine to the airport for a start, and then I don't know where they found that in England, but then we. Then we got to the airport and it was first class all the way. Me and my wife were just looking at each other, thinking, "Wait, where's our kid?" And anyway, when we got there, I'm trying to remember whether. Well, I'm pretty sure we definitely had Finn at that point. Yeah, we did. We had Finn. He was very little, and we were put up, and I just had this thing to do, this role, and of course, it wasn't too far away from the one role I'd already played, but here I am, opposite my hero. So I just held it together, and really, it was that dropping in the deep end with him, and him being great with me, and being a fan of my stuff, and me just not like melting at the sight or wanting to chat to him. We had a few conversations actually about things like definitely about British comedy. We talked about Peter Sellers and our love for him and his work. Um, but what was I going to say? Oh, yes, the most surreal moment, man, was like at the end, just watching the movie at the premiere, watching on the big screen, and everyone's used to seeing Jim on the big screen, and there he is. And then little old Rhys comes in, and it's me working with him, and I'm like, and it just felt like I'd either been superimposed into the movie. What am I doing there? Or it felt like, I'd won some sort of competition where you get to have a scene with an icon. Well done, mate. There you go. There's your jacket. Get a photo with him and off you go. But yeah, just from that moment, I did a good job and things kept going.
Did the military background help with? Because I understand from my understanding with the big movies, there's a lot of
Mm.
waiting around. So
Yeah.
did the military help with in terms of when it's go time? it's go time. You've got to be on. I mean, that must have
100%.
helped in that regard as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and no one's brought that up with me before, but you're right. I'm used to, because 80% of, well, in New Zealand, let's be honest, 97% of army life is waiting for a war to happen. So we do a lot of stuff, a lot of training, but there's a lot of card playing. We'd hit the bars pretty early, about 4:30, and I got so good at eight ball pool. And we keep fit, but there's a lot of like, oh, well, I suppose at some point we'll be shipped out, but it never happens. So, there's a discipline to sort of being able to use your time wisely as well. And a lot of people cannot stand the acting life because you're in a trailer for 5, 6 hours sometimes, and you'd go mental, But luckily, as an artist, well, literally, I draw, but also as a comic. I'm writing things down. I'm coming up with ideas. I'm not just, because you learn your lines in about 10 minutes, and then you sort of just like looking at your watch, whistling. But no, I'm using that trailer time to do other things. I've written books in my trailer times. So it's about, yeah, having the discipline to make good use of the time.
There's this thing of New Zealand has its own sense of humour. I think I've talked with Rose Matafeo about this, but there's yourself, there's the Concords boys. I mean, there's loads. I'd heard Lorne Michaels say that the Canadian sense of humour is because they got Monty Python before it was shown in America, and he thinks that gave
Ah,
Canada the
the
edge.
edge.
I get that. What is the New Zealand sense of humour? Because it is unique. There is something special about it. We Brits, we love it. We obviously love you, the
Yeah.
Concords, Rose, and so on. But if you could put your finger on it, what is it?
I think it's that we're so non-inspiring. I mean, I think, we grew up the same. We watched all the British comedy. We had Monty Python and stuff. So we have this. We come from. We're in the same river, if you like, of comedy. And I just think we keep hitting the rocks on the sides because we've always been a little bit wayward, and it's all due to where we are, so far down in the South Pacific, isolated from the rest of the world. The rest of the world, we see it on TV and in films, but really, it's up until my generation, the my parents, like my mum went to Australia once, and so, and before then, yeah, that would be a lucky trip if you got there, or you might get to one of the islands, in the South Pacific. But to go to England or to go to the States was definitely out. Like you'd never get there. I mean, just because of the visa situation, and also, well, I don't know what else, but it's such a cost. But then my generation, and then since then, it's everyone's traveled. But I think, you know, because there's only 5 million of us, there was 3 million when I was kicking around in the early days. Um, we're small, we are just naturally different because of that. And I think we're not Australian. We don't have the confidence that they have. They've always been like a little mini America, always great at sports and stuff like that. I mean, we're good at it. We're good at all those kind of things, but we don't go on about it. And one of our big things I always come back to is the Sir Edmund Hillary when he climbed Mount Everest, for the British, by the way, but he just quietly achieved it, and he just went, well, knock the bastard off, him and Sherpa Tenzing. He didn't go on about it. And there's a famous story of his phone number back in New Zealand was listed, and he never stopped listing it because he was the most famous person in the world as soon as he did that. And people would just call him on his home phone and just ask him questions, and he'd just go, "Oh yeah, no, it was all right. It was tough. I miss beekeeping. I might get back into that now." So it was kind of like we've always had this thing where we don't get too excited. We're very laid back people. Um, and I think that part of our psyche comes in, and you can see that in the Concords, and you can see that in that show, and you can see it generally in our comedy and the shows I've done. There's a optimistic naivety about our presence, and we're non-threatening, and so the rest of the world kind of loves us because we we don't kick a fuss and get in anyone's way. I think we're happy with what we've got back there on the farm. The Shire is
Optimistic,
still looking good.
optimistic naivety. I think
Yeah,
that might be it in a nutshell. I once spent an afternoon with Dan Carter, and if you don't,
right.
to the listener, this is the greatest rugby player who's ever lived, in my opinion, anyway. And I wonder if that plays a part with the sport because you've achieved so much as a nation sporting wise. And he told me a story when he'd become, I think, the number one player on the planet. One of the All Blacks coaches came into the changing rooms and trod on his foot deliberately. And Dan Carter says, "Why do you do that?" And he says, "To make sure that you keep both feet on the ground."
Oh, wow.
And isn't that
Interesting.
perfect?
Yeah,
It worked. He never got above his station. It's
yeah.
magical stuff.
That is, and that comes back to the tall poppy syndrome as well, which, unfortunately is the other side of that, is where we're often too scared to put our heads out because we don't want to get knocked down by the rest of our own country. And there's a little bit of an issue with that. It's starting to dissipate now because you do need the confidence to be able to achieve, and to actually go, "Oh, I'm going to leave the country and go as far as I can go." And then, but at the same time, try and hold a modesty and you know, be honest and don't get too carried away. Our
Are you,
fellow country people will certainly let us know when we do.
are you
Pull your
still?
head in,
And
mate.
I'd say one of your routines, and you address the fact that you live in California. And again, you're sort of like apologetic about it. You're like, I don't want to, but I have to. When you're this
Yeah.
talented, then I'm afraid. Are you still out? It's such a great bit. But are you still
Thank
out
you.
there now?
Yes, yeah, I'm still here, still hanging on. I mean, America is sort of crumbling, um, as you might have seen on the news. It's pretty crazy. But I've got my youngest child is still at high school. He's at a really good school here. He's got 4 more years at this great school, so we don't want to have to like pull him out and go back to New Zealand. But of course, we could at any moment. That's the best part of being able to leave. But yeah, we're
Yeah,
still
of
here at the
course.
moment.
Also, you're a comedian you've embraced this. It's relatively new, but recording sets and sharing clips and so on. Was that easy for you to do? I mean, there's one of your. I mean,
Mm.
to the listener, if you've not seen it, there is a sketch of you improvising at this table and the
Oh,
act out of being at a wedding trying to speak to someone. It is 10 out of 10 comedy.
oh,
Every
thank you.
little facial expression, it's we've all been there, the quiet despair. Do you get your phone out? Do you try and get, I mean, it's beautiful. And
Oh,
that,
wow.
we wouldn't be able to see that if you hadn't clicked it up. So
Yeah.
did you have to, we know comedians on the circuit who are still wrestling with, oh, it's not why I got into it, but if I don't do it,
Yeah.
I'll get left behind. Was that an easy decision?
Um, well, once again, I've got to give credit to my guy Steve, who I travel with, and he's a comic. He puts his clips up and stuff like that, and he said to me, you've got some good stuff because we film every one of our little comedy club gigs that we've done, sort of building up material for this show. And I said, yeah, because I know I'm doing a lot of improv at some of these places, and that there just so happened to be a weird table on the stage with a with a
It's
with
so
some
good.
flowers on it, and I'm like, what is that doing there? But it's the classic lean-on table that you'd find at a sort of a wedding reception. So I just went into that bit, because I love using my environment, and I didn't even realize it was that funny, but it's had a really good response.
You can hear
So now
people.
I'm thinking, oh shit, maybe I'm going to have to put a table on my stage, and then it'll become a bit, and oh, here he goes, he's doing the wedding bit. But I mean, I don't know. I think as far as using clips, yeah, I haven't for a long time because I just haven't needed to because the last 10 years was about me acting in TV and film and working in that arena. But now that I'm doing a new show and I'm getting back into stand up, I know there's the whole thing has changed. Like back in my day, we didn't do clips. We didn't, we started to look at YouTube and then not really figure out what that is. We'd do some long form sketch stuff on there, and it didn't really give you any advantages in life. So I think. now, as with comics, they're putting their best little tiny bits out there, and they're getting followers and followers and followers. And you've got to have so many followers to be able to get into a club. It's all about your follower notoriety now. And I guess I gained all of mine just through my acting fame and stuff. So now, yeah, I'm kind of enjoying putting the little clips up, but I still come from the mentality of, I shouldn't give my comedy away because I'm about to go and do it. But I think even that's changed now, where people are just putting their best bits out there to, and then just doing them again. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe I'll put more up. I haven't put any actual bits from my new show up because I'm like, come on, they can just wait and see for that. But any improv stuff, I think from now on, I will perhaps put up, unless it's so good that I should go, hang on, maybe I should keep that and actually redo that. But that wedding bit's gone now. That's the only time you'll see that.
For what it's worth, I think it's. I mean, I've known you for half an hour, but if we've been friends for years, I would say to you, the beauty of doing that is, I just think it gives such a perfect flavour of Rhys Darby, and so anyone sees those clips, they know it's improvised, and I personally think people would go, that is what I want to go see live. It gives them an idea of the Rhys universe, if you like.
Yeah, I agree. Some of my best friends, when they saw that, said, dude, that's rocking. And I said, well, that's just some improv I did. That's not even part of the show. And they said, well, those are your best bits, mate. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give more room for improv in this new show for sure, and just hope that the venue puts weird items on the stage.
That's the rider. Now, Rhys, if you imagine, I mean, there are very few people better suited to this, to be honest with you, given your background. But if you were curating your dream comedy gig, do you have any pre-gig rituals, Rhys?
No, not really. I mean, the only thing I tend to do is I stretch a lot before I go out there to make sure my limbs are working well, and then usually just my muscle memory requires me to have a beer before I go on, like a light lager, just to give me a little bit of that rock and roll feel that I'm back in the clubs, and then that's it. Off I go. I might listen to a bit of music, a bit of rock and roll in the green room, just to sort of get me up, amped,
What are you talking? What sort of music?
Oh, usually early 2000s rock and roll, the Strokes or the Killers, the Hives, something fast, guitar-y.
I can so relate to this. Now, who would MC? Who would be your dream MC?
Oh, that's a good. I mean, I like Jared Christmas because
my God.
he has so much energy and he's just such a lovable guy. And he's also great at improv. So I think pushing him out there and just getting everyone amped is a hell of a good way to keep your show going.
A friend of mine, Sarah Pascoe, we're having this conversation. If you could pick one comedian who can play any room, any scenario, and whether it's the mothers' union meeting, whether it's the gig in the car park, the theatre, the gig at a pub, and her number one pick is Jared Christmas. She says,
"Oh, really?"
She's like, that guy can just. He's got that skill. He can do it anywhere. Skills to pay the bills.
Amazing. Yeah, I agree.
He's got that innate, he'd have walked on stage if I think the audience would have seen him for all of 10 seconds before making their mind up. Yeah, I want to be this guy's best friend.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's actually contacted me and said, look, he wants me to do, he's got a festival in Bath, I think, or Brighton, one of the two. And I'm not going to be able to do it because the dates don't work out. But he says, well, I'm just going to catch up with you on your tour anyway. I'm just going to come and find you and we'll hang out. And I'm like, yes, please. I need that. I need some Christmas time with you.
Beautiful. Who would open the gig, Rhys?
I'd probably have to go with Rose Matafeo.
What an amazing. She's played on a lot down the years. Tim, who you met in the intro there, he said she's got this quality where, again, that audience, she means so much to so many people when she's on. That the way the audience just tunes into her frequency. I mean,
Yeah,
she's really got it, hasn't she?
I think so. I think these comics that have you've nailed it there, that have their own frequency, and she's just exactly that. Like no one can do what she does, and it's hard to kind of go, what is it that she's doing? But I'm really into it, and I think that's what I like. I like unique comics that have their own take, and it's largely sort of an extension of who they are. And because comedians are unique people, there's ones that emulate, there's ones that do jokes really well and they don't really have a personality or whatever. But when you have a comic that, sort of embodies their entire existence in their act, it's special because that's what we're doing. We're humans that uh, believe we're weird. We know we are, and we're putting our weird self out there, and for people to laugh at. And there's something magical about that. There's something slightly sad about it, but but that's those are my favorite kind of comics. And yeah, I think she's so special.
I know she loves Steve Martin, yet I don't. And I say this as the ultimate compliment. She's not derivative of anyone else. You see some comedians and you go, oh, they remind me of,
Yeah.
certain name of, they remind me of Eric Morecambe. They remind me of, but with Rose, I remember, I think the first time I saw her, she got a scrap of paper out of her pocket and did an impression of Tim Allen's wife from Home Improvement, like apropos of nothing. Just,
Yeah,
spellbinding, brilliant, pure
got
Rose.
great pop culture knowledge, that's for sure. Yeah.
Who would middle the gig, Rhys?
Well, I'm a big fan of Glenn Wool, the Canadian.
This is a great gig. This is a great gig. Yeah, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a mate of mine for years, and I don't think there's anyone out there that can perform as confidently and slick with their material than Glenn. And it's always intellectual. It's always got a weird kind of quirky element to it, which is, he's very different to what I do, but we complement each other because he's a big fan of the silly, even though his material really is kind of sharper than that and has a point to it. It always has a silly edge. So I think that's yeah, and I just think he's a goddamn good stand-up, and he's got charisma, oozing out of
Do
his
we,
hair.
are we, are we not, we, as in, when I say we, I mean comedy, we miss the, do you not think we miss the silly? I mean, thank God you're bringing the silly. Harry Hill
Mm.
told us a story. He had a show called Alien Fun Capsule. I was his warm-up. And he said every time it would go out on a Saturday, the legend Barry Cry would phone him up and would say, thank you for the silly, Harry. We miss the silly. We need the silly. And in this age of, like, a lot of these American, and a lot of my favourite comedians are
Mm.
American, I'm not throwing shade or anything, like these Trump aligning stand-ups, and
Mm.
the stand-ups are very serious. I just wonder if we need silly now more than ever.
Oh, that's great to hear because that's definitely what I'm bringing back. I think so because it's funny for funny's sake, and it's not about having an agenda or punching, down or punching up even. There could be a little bit of punching up. We can all do that as long as it's done in a silly way. But I think it's
Sometimes a
really
bit of punching self.
yeah, self-punching's good, which is kind of
Yeah.
what I do. Um, and it's kind of what I like to explore is the stupidity of the human condition, and we're all just stuck on this planet and having to live this life, and so you might as well make the most of it. You might as well kind of you know be silly about it. Don't be too serious. There's so much bad shit happening on the planet, especially right now, that to actually just not talk about it and talk about all the fun, good, silly things in life just gives you that joy, gives you that kind of escapism that I think we need for an hour and a half. You're paying money for your babysitters, you're going out, you want to just have that laughter of absolute like exhaustion of just euphoria, and then walk away and go, oh, that was amazing. I'll buy a t-shirt. And then it's back to whatever you're doing.
I mean, like, I know that obviously there is the tour and there is the acting, but with you, do I take it there is that the fact that you've got such variety in your career? I mean, you know, Meryl Streep would be applauding your CV. You know, it's all there. Do you think that's part, do you think that's the thing that keeps you interested? The fact that you're always doing different projects.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've always found comedy to have so many levels to it, not just in the art of stand up, but just in performance. You know, I do a lot of voice work for animation. I do comedy acting, obviously, and I do comedy writing. I've written three comedy children's books, and I'm writing another one now. And so I'm enjoying every element to what makes me tickle inside. Yeah, I've been really lucky to do the amount of acting jobs I've done. The CV is definitely looking good, and especially for a guy who is going to use this accent. I'm not going to talk like an American. There's plenty of goddamn Americans out there to do that. And it's about me getting my part of my world out there. And I do play a lot of aliens. I do play a lot of weird creatures. I'm happy with that, you know, as long as I'm making people laugh, as long as I pop up in things, and if I'm the guy where you go, oh, great, he's here, then that's okay with me.
I think that's a great quality, by the way, because you do have that, and that what a wonderful thing. Oh, great! You know the way that you say about Gene Hackman. You know when you see Gene Hackman in a film, like your shoulders would drop about 3 inches. Oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. When you appear, you're like, oh, Rhys is in this. You know, great.
Oh, good.
Um,
Let's just hope I
Glenn's a
don't end
great
up like Gene Hackman.
Sorry, that was it. As soon as I said that, I thought, what a time to bring up Hackman.
No, but
Um,
he was such a fantastic actor. Yeah, it was a sad ending to a brilliant career.
he really was. So Glenn in the middle. What a great pick. Who's closing this juggernaut?
Ah, this is a big one, isn't it? The closer. I mean, it's hard for me to go past Eddie Izzard, because growing when I first started my career, watching Eddie, it was kind of like, yeah, watching a one person version of kind of Python-esque um, genius improvisational weirdness that definitely inspired me in my early days. So yeah, I think that would be the best headliner.
Do you think, in the way that like if Lorne Michaels got the had Python and that is that the sort of impact that Izzard had on you? You know, once you'd seen it, Izzard was sort of like almost like in your DNA. You know, in your
Yeah.
DNA infused your comedic sensibilities.
Yeah, made me realize that as a fellow Python fan, that you can kind of do alternative sketch on your own, if you've got the skills, and the you know, and I so that's what I saw Eddie do, and I kind of felt like that's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
So when you were in the military, were you even then was the privately were you thinking I want to pursue comedy? Was it always in there? Was it in there before the military?
I absolutely. As a school kid, I was the class clown. So I was getting told off for being funny. I would have other kids get me to do. I used to draw cartoons during geography, and would sit in our places, and then one of my mates would go, "Okay, get the cartoon going, mate." So I would just be doing that while the while the lesson was on or whatever. I wasn't even listening to I was like a C student, because but amongst my group of friends who were reading these funny comics, I was a bit of a hero. And then I started doing just random things in class to get laughs. Um, then as a soldier, I kind of threw all that out the window for about 5 minutes, but then it finally came back. Well, I say finally, this was in cadet school when I was there. We did this 6-month training thing. I was in the elite regular force cadet training school to become a future non-commissioned officer. So I was in this thing, and I would just end up sort of like playing around and doing impressions of the other NCOs, And all the other cadets were loving it. And then I got found out. So then I got lined, or the whole of my barrack lot had to be lined up and to watch me, and then I had to do my impressions of the NCOs in front of the NCOs, and they thought that that would break me, But I saw this as an opportunity to really perform. So I don't know where it came from, but I just decided to do an impression of these are like, big 30, 40-year-old dudes, sergeants and such the like, tough guys. And I'm doing an impression of them, like in front of them, and the rest of my barracks are all lined up, like just absolutely laughing their heads off. And so it sort of backfired because they thought I was going to just like pee my pants. And anyway, the best part about it was that couple of the toughest one of the it was this corporal guy, and he laughed and he went, "No, you're good. That's real good, bro."
Whoa!
Yeah, it was this Maori
The
fella,
ultimate
and
gig.
yeah. So I was kind of from that moment on, and it continued on. I got a bit of abuse from and from a couple of other corporals down the line, and I stuck with it. I did another 4 years after that school. But yeah, I've got plenty of army stories to tell you of me being an idiot, and getting away with it. But in fact, I've done some of that stuff in my stand up. But yeah, I've always had this comic brain, and if you've got one, you can't get rid of it. So it doesn't matter what job you end up doing, you're gonna act the goat. You got to watch your mouth. You're quick-witted, us silly comical people. It's who we are.
Have you have you got to meet? I know Susie Eddie Izzard now. Have you got to meet
Sorry, I should have said
Susie?
Susie. Yeah, sorry
No,
about
no, no,
that.
no, no. Because no, but no, but you're talking about Eddie Izzard when Eddie Izzard was Eddie
Yeah,
Izzard doing Dress to Kill, Force Majeure, etc. I just meant
100%. Yeah.
But have you met Eddie down the years and
Yes.
got
Yeah, I
to
have.
combat?
Yes. A couple of times. And each time has been kind of inspiring. The one time was in Australia and Sydney at the Opera House. We did I think I was doing Rhys Darby and Friends or something at the Opera House, not to you know blow my own trumpet, but um, it was sold out. But it was Izzard was there, and we had good chats then. Um, and Eddie told me, you should. I was either there or at the Comedy Store in London. That was another time. One of these two times. And Eddie said, it was Eddie then, said, you know, you should do a one man play in New York off Broadway. Something like that. I think that's what Eddie had done, or back in the day, and that's sort of breaking into the American market. And I was like, yeah, that's right. Maybe I should do that, because when you've got your own unique thing that sometimes doesn't really always fit in a comedy club, you're trying to figure out, because I kind of usually need a bigger stage. And I was at a point where I was going, what am I going to do with the skills and the performance that I have that's not going to fit on a tiny, especially in the States, where most of the comedy clubs are literally just, one by 1 meter kind of thing with a mic. And I can't kind of do what I do. And so, the suggestion was, I found really golden and was kind of inspiring. I never did it, of course. I ended up getting into acting and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's just having that's one of the best things I think about the comedy industry, is that your heroes inspire you, and they're friendly, and you don't hear too much about the camaraderie that is in comedy. You often think, oh, there must be so much competition. You guys must be, you know, ripping on each other all the time. But really, when we get together, it's always big support, because we want to do the same thing. We want to bring laughter to the world. And yeah, in those days, Eddie Izzard helped me really get some real self-belief. And so I decided to go to America and really get into the acting from that point.
That's incredible. Now, has there been an incident that you would somehow that's happened to you, or that you've witnessed that you would somehow love to replicate at this gig?
Well, I guess the only thing that comes to mind, because to be honest with you, when I'm out there, I'm in my own world. I don't really notice too much the people. I notice when I hear a weird laugh, or if there's something that catches my eye, and I will utilize that, obviously. But in general, I'm kind of creating a world that I'm in, for everyone's entertainment. And so I kind of don't don't kind of interact with people too much, unless there's someone that's really yelling something out that's corrupting the performance. But that doesn't usually happen, by the way. So don't get any ideas, anyone out there. Um, but let's just say this: I come out on stage, and there's a weird table in the corner with some flowers on it.
He's gonna do the bit.
He's gonna do the. And I walk over to it, and everyone's like, and you can hear the audience. He's gonna do the wedding bit. And I walk over to it, and just before I get to it, I just turn around and just ignore it. And I keep going back to it, and I in my bits where I'm having a gap, and I start and then no, and then I go, oh, by the way, do you guys, and I just completely keep ignoring it all the way. I do it maybe 6 or 7 times. I beat the 3 rule. I just keep going with it, and then right at the end of the show, I leave, and then there's an encore. Darby, and I come straight out, and then straight away, as the encore, I just do the wedding bit, and bring the house down.
People in their wedding bit t-shirts are delighted. Oh, he did
That's funny.
he did the bit.
Do the bit.
People dressed as a bride and groom. Come on, please.
Yeah. Well, these days, the cosplay, someone will be dressed as the table. Do the bit on me. Do the... God, I can
Bars
just
on the
it.
shoulder. Has there been an incident that must not happen at this gig?
Yeah, I think there's been so many. I've always there's been microphone issues for me. I always wear I wear a face attachment mic so that I can be hands free. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes there's bad distortion that happens on that. Sometimes you'll get some drunk guy at the back who I don't know why he's there. He's not there to see me. He's been dragged along or something. He doesn't get what I'm doing. He can't keep up with me prancing about. And he just yells out, "Tell a joke. Can you just tell a joke?" It's the worst heckle, because I'm like, no, what? That was one of the worst heckles I've ever received. That was at a pub somewhere, and I didn't have the space to do what I was going to do. So I was mainly doing sound effects, which is another thing that I can bring in. If I've got a normal mic on a stand, I'll just do if people are talking, and sometimes there's these gigs, these bad ones I've done in the UK back in the day, where people are just talking and not and you shouldn't even be really doing a gig at this pub. Maybe the football's on. That's a bad situation. And so I ended up just using the mic and going, how good's this mic? And then I'll end up just doing helicopter noises, but not just once. I'll just do it for like a good 5 minutes, just different types of helicopters flying past. I'll do a couple of F-14s, and just it's about kind of just disrupting whatever's going on with something odd.
You might know Nick Helm. There's a comedian on the UK circuit called Nick Helm, and somebody once heckled him with... I've mentioned this to him because it really stayed with me, and he did not remember it, but someone once shouted out the "tell us a joke" heckle while he was on. And he turned to this guy and he goes, didn't miss a beat, he just turns to me and goes, "I know you don't think that hurts us, but I want you to know that it really does." And then he just carried on with his set, and I tell you what, I saw that guy in real time die of shame.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's a really good one. Not a peep out of him for the rest of the night. You just sort of like imploded from within. As
what have I done? Yeah.
Such a lovely way to deal with it.
Yeah.
Final question: how do you unwind after a gig, Rhys?
I think, yeah, unwind is the right term for sure. I think I've got to just sit down for a while, um, and just have a quiet drink, you know. Um, I'll basically probably not really think about it. It'll take me, it always takes me a while to come out of the world I've just been in and created. And yeah, I think really just sort of chill with my friends and have a drink and just have a laugh, really.
Have you ever? Because as you say, you inhabit these worlds, you build these worlds. I don't think you do it now. But was there a time years ago where you've tried to replicate it, and the magic when you try and replicate a thing that you've
Mm.
already replicated, it's never quite the same, is it? When you know, like we've all done an ad lib that's
Yeah.
gone down gangbusters, and then you've tried to replicate the ad lib, and it's just not. It's not as organic, is it? You know, the magic has gone, if you like. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a sticky one because and it's another good advocate for actually doing improv because those moments, you know, are hard to replicate and they're just so spontaneous. And if you're on, if you're on, when you're on, and if you're on form, um, and you should just go for it. And you'll know those nights when you are kind of like just exhausted and you're really relying on the energy of the crowd for you to get through your stuff, because you just don't feel as though you're as on as you should be. Those are the nights when you should definitely not try and replicate something that was magical the night before, because it will not be as good. And yeah, I think the longer the piece as well, the tougher it is. It's a couple of lines here and there about something, a little line that you came up with that was magical, absolutely. But if you're doing a full bit that ended up being, 7 minutes long and involving three different characters, then once you start something too, you've got to kind of you got, you're in then. People don't talk about this, but it's a really disciplined, real time kind of acting gig that you're trying to convince yourself that this is the funniest thing ever. Let alone everyone else that's out there. If you can convince yourself, then they're gonna go for it as well. But if you're feeling as though
Right.
you're not buying it,
Yeah.
then Jesus, bro, you should have stopped selling it. Move on.
That's so
Sometimes
true.
I've been known to, I'm halfway through something or a quarter way through something, let's be fair, and I'll just fake a leg cramp, and then I'll pull out of it, and I was like, what? And the audience will go, oh, and I go, oh, sorry, no, sorry, guys, something's happened here, and I'll do a. Luckily, I'm a good actor, so I can do a bit of a limp away, and I'll go, I have to go, I got to get, I'll have a water. And then I'll just quickly check my notes and go, what can I move on from that? But that didn't go well. And I'll come out, no, I'm fine. And then I'll just go straight back into something else. So you've got to have,
That's
but don't you
great.
guys steal my tricks? That's
No, no, no. I mean, I was just thinking. I was thinking I might have a leg cramp tonight.
the
That's
leg cramp. You can
um,
make anything funny. That's the key. When disasters happen, just make it funny. When my mic breaks down, I make it funny. When there's a table with some flowers on there, I'll make that funny. If there's someone that's laughing and they sound like a pelican giving birth, then I will emulate that for the audience to see.
now, before you go, I don't have to ask this. I would love to ask this. That microphone using there as one of the most prolific uh, voice actors around with cartoons, video games, and so on. Do you do it from home, or do you schlep here, there, and everywhere?
What's that? Oh, my voice work. No, I do it all in studios. This is purely for my podcasting.
Wow,
Mm. It's a
incredible!
good one though.
I mean, it is a real belter. Hey, I mean, look, thank you very much for your time. We are always be comedy. We're in Kennington. If you need a loosener before you go on tour, please just drop us a line. We'd be honoured.
Yeah, man. Cannington. Oh yeah, I know exactly where that is. Yeah, I used to live there actually.
What?
Out east, right?
Yeah, like south, one stop from Waterloo.
Yeah, Canning Town. Yeah, and you got the
No,
DLR there.
Kennington, not Canning Town.
Oh
Kennington.
shit! Sorry, mate. No, I won't be visiting you. Okay, so
Rhys,
no, I
bless you.
will.
That was dynamite. Thank you so much, man.
No worries, man. Thank you.